welcome to the deep dive. Have you ever felt like you're constantly fighting fires, in your life or maybe at work? And just when you put one out, another problem seems to relentlessly pop up. Today, we're kind of unlocking the secret to that cycle. We're diving into Donella Meadows' Thinking in Systems. Now, this is a book that offers, well, not just answers, but really a whole new way of seeing the world. It's like finding a key to a door, maybe a door most of us didn't even know was locked. Our mission today is to pull out her most vital insights, really understand their urgent relevance now, and crucially, show you how to apply this wisdom. Apply it to your own life, your creative pursuits, so you can stop firefighting and actually start designing things better.
Exactly. And, to really get Meadows, think about a problem you've tried to fix, maybe over and over again, only for it to just keep reappearing, maybe in a slightly different form.
Yeah.
She basically gives us the blueprint for why that happens, and importantly, how to actually solve it, not just, patch it up. It's almost like getting X-ray vision for the invisible forces shaping our world. Everything from your daily routines right up to global crises like, say, climate change or even AI development. So we're going to unpack her core thinking, maybe debunk some common myths that keep us stuck, and offer some practical takeaways, things that can genuinely reshape how you approach problems, and opportunities too. This isn't just abstract theory, it's really an invitation to change your lens.
Yeah, that idea of constantly fighting fires but never getting to the root cause, it resonates with so many people, I think. So how did Meadows, with all her clarity, how does she frame this fundamental problem she was tackling?
Well, she observed that we live in this world of interconnected systems, right? Everything's connected. But often we're functionally blind to how they actually operate. We don't see the connections. We tend to focus on the symptoms, chase the quick short-term fixes. And then we're genuinely surprised when those fixes backfire, or maybe they create new problems somewhere else entirely. Meadows was wrestling with these really core questions like, why do policies, even well-intentioned ones, fail so often? How can we possibly see these hidden structures that dictate so much of the behavior we observe? And crucially, where are the real leverage points? Those spots where a small shift can create a huge change. And how do we use them wisely? She really wanted to bridge a gap. Not really a gap of information, but more a gap of perspective. Her core belief, this is key, was that structure drives behavior more than blame or intention. So her big aim was to help us, stop firefighting symptoms and start redesigning the structures that create them.
It's so hard, though, isn't it, to shake that instinct to blame individuals or look for those simple, quick fixes. How does she gently ease us into understanding these complex, often invisible structures? What's the first step she takes us through? How does she make the invisible visible?
She starts incredibly gently, actually.
Yeah.
Making the invisible visible, as you said, using really simple building blocks. She introduces stocks, which are basically anything that accumulates. Think water in a bathtub or money in your bank account. That's a stock. And then you have flows. That's simply what fills or drains that stock. The faucet filling the tub, or your salary going in, expenses going out.
Okay, so if I'm thinking about, say, my personal energy levels through the week, my current energy is the stock. And things like sleep, good food, maybe exercise, those are flows in. While work demands, stress, lack of sleep, those are flows out. Am I getting that right?
Exactly. That's a perfect way to visualize it. And once you start seeing stocks and flows, you immediately start noticing the next layer, feedback loops. Think about a thermostat in your house. That's a classic balancing loop. It's always trying to keep things stable around a set point, right? Like your body regulating its temperature. But then you also have reinforcing loops. These amplify change. They cause growth, or sometimes decline, to snowball. Like compound interest making your savings grow faster and faster, or a positive word-of-mouth cycle for a new project you launched, or even negative spirals, unfortunately.
Well, right, yeah. I can instantly see how mapping something like my creative output using stocks and flows and then spotting those loops, that can make a huge difference in understanding why I get stuck or why things sometimes take off. What else does she teach us to recognize? What other patterns are out there in these systems?
So after the basics, she takes us on what she calls a brief visit to the systems zoo in Chapter 2. It's a great name. She introduces these common system archetypes, patterns that show up again and again. You'll recognize S-shaped growth. That's when something starts growing fast, but then levels off as it hits limits. Think about a new technology saturating a market. Then there are oscillations. These are systems with delays that cause them to swing back and forth, like supply chains constantly overshooting or undershooting demand.
Ah, like the boom and bust in housing sometimes, or even inventory levels in a store.
Exactly that kind of thing. Periods of glut, then scarcity.
And that leads into boom and bust cycles more generally, where reinforcing loops drive things up really fast, but then they hit a limit and collapse dramatically. Her classic example, which makes it really vivid, is the predator-prey cycles. Think rabbits and foxes. Their populations go up and down in relation to each other. It really highlights how even quite simple systems can generate surprisingly complex, nonlinear, kind of unpredictable behavior.
It's fascinating how these patterns just repeat everywhere once you start looking. So, okay, the systems can be complex, unpredictable even, but they're not just pure chaos, right? What is it that makes them actually work so well much of the time? What gives them their strength despite the complexity?
That's a great question, and that's exactly what Chapter 3, Why Systems Work So Well, is all about. Meadows points out their inherent strengths. One is their resilience. Think about how a forest can regrow after a fire, or how your body fights off an infection. That's resilience. She also talks about their capacity for self-organization, how cells evolve into complex organisms, or how markets adapt to new information without a central controller. And then there's hierarchy, the way systems are nested within larger systems. Like cells make up tissues, tissues make up organs, organs make up you, or families within communities, communities within nations. And she has this important quote, resilience is not the same as being static. It's not about staying the same. She says, it is the capacity of a system to maintain its function and structure in the face of disturbance. So it's about adapting, restoring, not just being rigid.
Okay, that makes sense. They have these inherent strengths, but then why do they still surprise us so often? Why do they fail sometimes? If they're so robust inherently, where do we typically go wrong when we interact with them?
Well, that brings us to Chapter 4, Why Systems Surprise Us. And they certainly do. She points to a few key reasons. One big one is delays, time lags in the system. By the time we notice a problem, say, rising pollution levels, the underlying causes might have been building up for years.
So the feedback is slow, and by the time we react, it might be too late for an easy fix.
Exactly. The system has accumulated momentum. Another issue is how we define boundaries. We tend to draw lines around problems that are convenient for us. We might treat pollution as an externality, something outside our economic model, but in reality, it's deeply connected, with real feedback into the health of the workforce, the environment, everything. And then there's nonlinearity. This is the tricky one. I mean, small causes don't always have small effects. Sometimes a tiny nudge can cause a huge shift, or a massive effort yields almost no change.
That makes simple cause and effect thinking pretty unreliable then.
It really does. So a practical tip she might suggest. Next time you're facing a stubborn problem, pause. Ask yourself, what crucial feedback, what connection might be hidden just outside the boundary I've mentally drawn around this issue?
That's a powerful way to rethink things, and it leads right into what she calls system traps. I know I've felt stuck in patterns like these before, personally, and I see them playing out on larger scales, too. Can you walk us through some of the most common traps she identified, and importantly, their antidotes?
Absolutely. Chapter 5, System Traps and Opportunities, is incredibly useful because it names these recurring failure modes. Once you can name them, they feel less like inevitable doom. So one is policy resistance. This is where different actors in a system are basically pulling in opposite directions. It's like a tug of war.
Because their goals aren't aligned.
Precisely. The antidote. Find ways to align the goals, to get everyone pulling roughly in the same direction. Then there's the famous tragedy of the commons. This happens when a shared resource like clean air, fish stocks, maybe even office coffee gets depleted because there aren't clear rules or agreements managing its use.
Right. Everyone acts in their own short-term interest, and the collective resource suffers.
Yep. The solution involves rules, quotas, mutual agreements, or maybe changing the incentives.
Oh, and I definitely recognize drift to low performance. I see this everywhere. It's like when standards slowly erode over time because maybe the pressure's on and good enough keeps getting redefined downwards. I've seen that creep into my own projects for sure.
Exactly. It's a slow slide. The antidote there is really conscious. You have to set and maintain clear, high goals. Keep referencing the original standard. Don't just let the baseline drift downwards. And another big one is success to the successful. This is where initial advantages get amplified through reinforcing loops. The rich get richer, the popular get more popular.
Which can lead to massive inequality if unchecked.
It absolutely can. The solution often involves mechanisms to rebalance resources or level the playing field somehow. What's so empowering about this chapter is how Meadows turns these potential doom loops into something manageable. Just naming the trap, she suggests, gives you agency. Once you see the pattern, you realize you can act differently to change it.
It really is remarkable how she does that, just calmly dismantling these deep-seated beliefs. But the myths she debunks are so pervasive, aren't they? I think most of us fall for some of them. Like the quick fix is just so tempting. What's the real danger beyond just temporary failure if we keep operating based on these myths?
Well, the real danger is that these myths keep us blind to the underlying structures. They make us feel powerless, or they misdirect our energy into things that won't actually solve the problem. She really aimed to debunk several really common ones. Myth 1, quick fixes solve problems. We touched on this. The reality, they often backfire, sometimes making things worse down the line. The price controls causing shortages. Myth 2, problems are caused by bad actors. This is huge. The reality is that behavior often emerges from the system structure, not just individual villains. A traffic jam isn't usually one bad driver, it's the flow dynamics. Shifting focus from blame to redesign is key.
That's a big mental shift for a lot of us, I think.
It is. Then myth 3. If you can measure it, you can manage it. We love metrics. But the reality is we often measure what's easy, not what's truly important, and that distorts our goals. Meadows famously said we get what we measure. Think about chasing GDP while ignoring well-being.
Right, or chasing follower counts instead of meaningful connection.
That's exactly. Myth 4. Systems are predictable and controllable. Reality check. Delays and nonlinearities mean systems will always surprise us. We need humility. Myth 5. Growth is always good. Nope. Reality. Unchecked growth in any limited system eventually leads to overshoot and collapse. Nature knows this. And myth 6. Complexity equals chaos. Also not true. Reality. Systems have elegant, self-organizing properties. Complexity can create resilience and beauty. Essentially, she was urging us, as you said, to stop thinking like mechanics trying to fix a broken machine part.
And start thinking like gardeners tending a living, interconnected landscape.
Yeah,
That's the core reframe.
such a powerful metaphor. And her revolutionary ideas, they go beyond just debunking myths. I know she talks about paradigms being the deepest leverage point. What exactly does she mean by that? Why is that considered the sort of crown jewel of her thinking? Ah, yes, the idea that paradigms are the deepest leverage points. That really is the crown jewel. It's in Chapter 6, leverage points, places to intervene in a system. She lays out this hierarchy of places where you can intervene, and tinkering with numbers like tax rates or budgets, that's actually the weakest leverage. Changing things like information flows or the rules of the system or its goals, that's stronger. But the most profound leverage, the place where you get the most change for the least effort, is shifting the underlying paradigm. The shared mindset, the deep beliefs out of which the system arises. As she puts it, and this is such a key quote, the mindset out of which the system arises is the deepest leverage point.
So it's not just changing what we do, but changing the fundamental way we see the world that shapes what we do.
Exactly. Think about shifting from a paradigm of humans dominate nature to one where humans are part of nature. That single shift changes everything about how we design our economies, our cities, our lives. And the ultimate kicker, the highest leverage point of all, it's the power to transcend paradigms altogether, to realize that no single mindset, no single story holds the absolute truth. That gives you incredible freedom.
Wow. Okay, so if Meadows were alive today, looking at our world, especially with things like accelerating climate change, the explosion of AI, it feels like she'd be, I don't know, both heartbroken maybe, but also fiercely hopeful. Her ideas feel more urgent than ever. What would she likely say about this moment we're in?
I think you're right. Heartbroken and hopeful. She'd likely argue that many of our biggest crises right now stem directly from those structural blind spots she spent her life illuminating. Chasing symptoms, like focusing only on carbon emissions targets without changing the growth paradigm, optimizing for short-term gains, measuring the wrong things like GDP over planetary health. Her solution wasn't going to be just more technology or more data. It was always about better ways of seeing applying that system's lens. That's why her work is timeless. But the urgency in, say, 2025, it's undeniable. Climate change is playing out exactly like a planetary tragedy of the commons, with reinforcing loops like melting ice feeding back into more warming, potentially outpacing our balancing efforts. Social media and politics. You see algorithm-driven echo chambers and outrage cycles. In Meadows' terms, those are runaway reinforcing loops with broken feedback. There's no effective balancing mechanism.
Yeah, you can really see that playing out.
The global economy starkly shows success to the successful, with inequality reaching historic levels due to those reinforcing feedback loops. And think about health and pandemics like COVID-19. That was a global lesson in delays, bounded rationality, and the consequences of ignoring system interconnections. And then there's artificial intelligence. This pushes us into totally new territory. Meadows wouldn't frame AI as simply good or bad. She'd ask, what is the goal of this system we're building?
Is its goal profit? Is it safety? Is it human augmentation? Because that goal will fundamentally determine its behavior. The paradigm choices we make right now about AI will shape everything. So her urgent call would likely be the same one she always made. We can't predict systems, but we can design them. Her urgency wasn't about doom. It was always about possibility. Those deeper leverage points, changing rules, goals, paradigms are still available. The real question is, will we have the wisdom and courage to use them?
That is a powerful challenge for all of us. So, okay, from all this incredible wisdom, if you had to distill it down, what are the absolute core insights? Maybe the 5 key takeaways she most wanted us to internalize, the things that really stick.
All right, if we had to pick just 5, these would be the absolute essentials to carry with you. They really can transform your perspective. First, structure drives behavior. This is fundamental. Stop blaming individuals first. Look at the system's architecture, redesign that, and her quote here: "The behavior of a system cannot be known just by knowing the elements of which the system is made." Still so relevant when we're drowning in data points but missing the connections. Second, feedback is everything. Pay super close attention to the loops reinforcing, balancing, and especially their timing, the delays. Ignoring feedback is why so many policies fail. The quote for this one has to be, "We get what we measure." Such a sharp critique of shallow metrics, whether it's GDP or follower counts. You see it everywhere today. Third, goals and paradigms shape systems most. Remember, tinkering with numbers is weak leverage. Changing the system's fundamental goal or the underlying mindset, that's where the real power is, and that brings back our crown jewel. Quote, "The mindset out of which the system arises is the deepest leverage point." Especially with AI now, the mindset we embed is critical. Fourth, traps can be escaped by changing rules. Things like policy resistance or the tragedy of the commons aren't inescapable fates. They often dissolve when you realign incentives, change the rules, adjust the information flows. And fifth, humility and partnership beat control. Systems are complex, alive, surprising. Approach them with curiosity, patience, and willingness to adapt, to dance with them, as she says.
That dancing idea is so evocative. Not forcing, but moving with it.
Exactly. And the quote that captures this human element is, "Living successfully in a world of systems requires more of our humanity and less of our technocracy." It's a reminder that empathy, wisdom, moral imagination, these are leverage points too, not just spreadsheets and code.
These feel less like abstract concepts now and more like, I don't know, guiding principles for actually living better. And Meadows wasn't just writing for academics or policymakers, was she? She wanted everyday people to use these ideas. So how can you, listening right now, practically start applying these profound ideas, maybe starting today?
Oh, absolutely. It's much more practical than it might sound. Here are maybe 7 ways to put Meadows into practice. 1. Map your own systems. Pick an area, your finances, your energy levels, a creative project. Sketch it out. What are the stocks? What are the flows? What are the loops? You'll see things you didn't notice before. 2. Notice feedback loops daily. Just for a week, maybe keep a small journal. Track things that seem to spiral up, good or bad reinforcing loops, or things that seem to stabilize, balancing loops. Just notice them. 3. Redefine your goals. Ask honestly, what is the real goal of this system? Like your job. Is the goal just to produce X widgets, or is it maybe to create value or find fulfillment? That changes how you approach it.
That's a big one. Challenging the implicit goals.
It really is. 4. Challenge what you measure. Link to goals. Are your metrics shallow, like hours worked, or richer, like quality of outcome or personal well-being? Swap them out. 5. Build resilience, not just efficiency. We optimize everything for efficiency, but that makes systems brittle. Add slack, extra time, buffer savings, maybe just more patience to absorb shocks. 6. Dance, don't dictate, especially in creative work or collaborations. Stop trying to control every variable. Experiment, watch the feedback, adapt. Treat it more like jazz improvisation than marching orders. And 7. Think commons, not just self. In your team, your family, your community, always ask that question. What happens if everyone does this? It helps guard against those tragedies of the commons.
That's a fantastic, actionable list. And didn't she also offer that hierarchy of leverage points? There's different places to intervene, from the small tweaks to the big shifts. How can we think about those leverage points specifically in, say, our own creative lives, or maybe in building a community project?
Yes, the 12 leverage points. They provide a brilliant map for where to focus your energy for the most impact. It's really a spectrum. Down to the weakest leverage end, you have things like numbers, constants, parameters. This is like adjusting your practice time by 10 minutes or tweaking the budget for a community potluck. Useful, fine-tuning, but not game-changing. Buffer sizes. Giving yourself more buffer time before a deadline or having a few backup volunteers. It reduces stress, increases resilience slightly, but doesn't change the fundamental dynamics. Then you move up to mid-level leverage. which is where things get more interesting. Stock and flow structures. This is about changing the actual plumbing. How does inspiration actually flow into finished work for you? How do resources or information move in your community group? Changing these structures can significantly alter behavior, delays, shortening or lengthening feedback loops, getting audience feedback faster on creative work, or maybe deliberately slowing down decision-making in a community to build more trust, balancing feedback loops, strengthening things that bring stability, like establishing regular critique sessions to keep quality high, or community guidelines that manage conflict, reinforcing feedback loops, amplifying positive spirals, finding ways to boost momentum when things are going well, like celebrating small wins or designing referral programs for community growth. Information flows, changing who knows what when, being more transparent about your creative process, or ensuring everyone in a community has access to key information. Rules of the system. This is powerful. Your personal creative rules, right first thing in the morning, or community rules, all decisions by consensus. Change the rules. You really change the game. And then you get to the strongest leverage points, the ones that reshape everything. Self-organization. Creating conditions where the system can find its own solutions. Allowing space for spontaneous collaborations in your creative field, or letting community members propose and run their own initiatives without top-down control. Goals of the system. We talked about this. Is your creative goal fame or meaning? Is the community goal growth or connection? This choice dictates almost everything else. It's huge. Paradigms, mindsets, the underlying beliefs. Shifting from art as a competition to art as collaboration, or from this community serves me to I serve this community. This transforms the entire feel and function. Power to transcend paradigms, the ultimate leverage, not being locked into any single story about what success means or what this system is, allowing it to evolve freely into whatever brings life and serves its deepest purpose. That's real freedom.
Listening to all this, it strikes me that the deeper current in Meadows' work, it isn't just about practical problem solving, is it? It feels like something more fundamental almost. Spiritual or philosophical? What's the underlying spirit, the unheard message maybe, that really resonates beyond all the specific concepts?
I think you're absolutely right. Beneath the diagrams and the analysis, Meadows is whispering something profound. She's whispering that we are not separate from the systems we study, that our crises often aren't just technical problems, but maybe spiritual ones, crises of connection, of perspective, and that the true goal of systems thinking ultimately isn't about achieving mastery or control. It's maybe about finding our sense of belonging within these larger wholes. Her work, hidden beneath the surface, feels like a love letter to resilience, to interconnection, to the possibility of a gentler way of being in the world. She's inviting us all to remember, the world is alive, treat it with reverence, and also, your life is a system too. Design it with care. And maybe most importantly, that true change begins not with control, but with the courage to shift our stories.
Wow. So as you go forward from here, maybe ask yourself, what hidden goals, what unspoken paradigms are you unconsciously living by in your own life, in your work, in your communities? And perhaps more importantly, are you willing to try and redesign them? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into thinking in systems. Now go forth and try to observe the systems all around you with fresh new eyes.